If you ask me whether I'm in favor of affirmative action in the sense of giving people a break who've grown up hard, then I agree with it completely. If you're talking about the kind of affirmative action where you put a thumb on the scale where all qualifications are equal, then I agree with it completely. If you're talking about the kind of affirmative action where black students and Latino students, regardless of class, are admitted to a university in particular according to lowered standards out of a sense that they are to contribute to a diversity tableau, then I disagree. I also disagree with the rationale that this is something that should be done because the playing field isn't completely level in America or because racism still exists in America. The idea of affirmative action, which when it was instituted I think was a very good idea, was not to keep it present until life was perfect, because life in America will never be perfect. There will always be a certain degree of discrimination. There's absolutely nothing that we could do about that, whether we like it or not. The reason that I disagree with that kind of affirmative action, which I take to be the reason that it's so controversial, are two. One of them is that if you set the bar low, then overall that's the kind of performance that you're going to get. That is a brutality of history. We don't like it. Nevertheless, it's still true. When I taught at the University of California at Berkeley, I watched how it was only after racial preference policies were discontinued that efforts were actually made to teach black and Latino students throughout the state to actually qualify for what the admissions procedures were. Before that, it hadn't happened and it wasn't going to happen. I think what's gone on in California since then, therefore, is better. The second reason that I disagree with the kind of affirmative action that's often gone on, particularly in universities, is because there is no evidence that the presence of black and Latino students significantly improves education, despite what's been said. We can talk about it. Not to mention that if you actually talk to black and Latino students, they tend not to be terribly fond of being treated as pawns in a diversity tableau. They're in school to get an education. So, that's my reason for taking my position in this debate, that affirmative action based on class is good. I think that it would be disingenuous to pretend that there's no such thing as the kind of affirmative action that involves lowering standards. It was certainly going on at the flagship schools in California when I taught there, specifically much lower grades, SAT scores, 300 points different. That was considered okay. It wasn't a good scene. Something very similar has been shown at the undergraduate school at the University of Michigan. I was speaking at a rather elite school rather recently, which I will not name, and was told that most of the black students on campus would not be there except for the fact that on their applications they displayed spunk. I don't think that that was a good thing. I think we should avoid the usual tart comment about how George W. Bush got quite far, despite the fact that he wasn't qualified for this, that, and the other thing, because I don't think that that's a very charitable comparison to make to black people. We've already been through too much. And so if a white person says, what about George W. Bush? Frankly, I think it's rather racist. If a black person feels that that's a good explanation, then I don't think they like themselves very much. In closing, I am right now teaching a course at Columbia. It is a very diverse class. There are black people in it. There are Latino people in it. One guy is 7 feet tall. One guy isn't. One woman runs a rhythm and blues band. The diversity helps, but everybody is equally qualified in all of the ways that we all know matter, and therefore the diversity is spectacular, but it's because there was not the kind of affirmative action that we consider controversial, and it could be because it's wrong.